Mind the gap. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 184 of the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and if you've ever been to London, you might have heard that phrase. And even if you haven't, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. And the danger, let's say there, it's pretty clear. It's in front of us, but they just remind you, mind the gap. What if I told you, though, that phrase is applicable in every moment of your life? And even though you might question it at the start of this episode, by the end of it, I think you'll end up agreeing with me. Before we start, as usual, if you end up liking this episode, leaving a like and a subscribe really help. They're just one click, but they really make the difference. Thank you very much. So, what is this problem? What is this real life gap that we're talking about? Before discussing that, I would like to bring to you the, let's say, inspiration that I had for today. I was listening to a podcast and one of the hosts said this phrase, empty spaces never remain empty. And in the moment, I was quite shocked by it because I was like, you know what? That's actually true. And the more I thought about it during the day, the more I realized that this was a perfect topic to bring, let's say, to the table of the Shower Podcast, because it's especially true, I believe, in the world of self-improvement or overall, if you're trying to hold yourself accountable for your decisions and actually making them yourself. But why is that? So, in my view, the moment that we don't actually take an action, the moment that we don't make a decision, we indeed leave a gap. That gap, if you just try to make a guess, you think that it's gonna stay there. I didn't make my decision, but I will maybe come back to it with a solution that I will find down the road and just fill in the gap. Makes sense, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't, because if you've ever tried to do that, and if you actually think about it, when you go back, that gap is no longer there. But how is that possible? Because you did absolutely nothing. Well, there is somebody that always, let's say, takes decisions for you. And again, it's part of any of us. We cannot escape it. And it's our subconscious. It's actually our brain based on the things that we taught it. Specifically, the way that you build routines and automations in your life. Here, actually, there is a duality. On one end, you could say, yeah, but I'm perfectly fine with all my automations, all my decisions, all the things that I like. So even if, I haven't made a direct decision to fill the gap, for me, it's still fine because I am not afraid of what my mind does on its own. And even though, first of all, congrats to you because it's something that it's actually pretty impressive and hard to do. But even in that case, I'm sure that there are some things that you are not fully happy with. And again, the extent to which that phrase is true, you only know. But in the end, there are still some things that you are trying to improve, you're trying to solve. And the only way to improve stuff is to make sure that the decisions you're making, the solution that you're bringing to the table, it's actually something that you want to do. Whereas, as I said, if you leave the gap there and you don't do nothing, well, for sure you can say, okay, I'm gonna handle that, I'm gonna do the usual. And that usually, it's actually something that you don't really like. Let's say that the normal, most infamous question, what will I eat tonight? And, if you are actually trying to improve yourself, maybe you're on a diet, you say, okay, I want to go buy groceries, I'm going to cook, and I'm going to solve it. And I know that this will bring me closer to my goal. Fantastic. But those nights in which you're like, man, I'm so tired, I really don't want to do anything. You look at your phone, you're like, okay, let me order. And the moment in which you said, let me order, is because you left a gap, a vulnerability, if you want to, switch for a moment in IT terms, that, somebody's going to take advantage of that. And in that case was your less desirable self that just says, hey, I'm really hungry. I still want to eat. It's fine if I order, then I'm going to deal with it. And this circles back perfectly to what I was telling you before. If the day after you want to go check on that gap and say, yeah, okay, for today I'm going to cook and it's going to be fine, sure, it's going to be, but you cannot place that decision within that gap. It has to be after. And all of this to say that there are a lot of things that we think have no consequences, specifically in the moments in which we don't make a decision. We just let things scroll by and we're like, yeah, you know what, it's going to be fine. And indeed, one day passes after the other. But if you stop, you look back and you see that, among your path, all these gaps that you thought you had along the way, and you're like, okay, I'm going to fix them bit by bit. Now the road is completely perfect from afar. But you actually look closer, you'll see that all these gaps are filled by things that you don't really like. So the next time you are posed with the question, what should I do? Do I have a solution for this? Am I able to do something? Realize that if you don't do nothing about it, that gap, that empty space will be filled by something. The what depends on you. And this is also maybe an encouragement to make you understand how important it is that your automations, your habits, your just defaults are actually in place and are good. Because if they're not, they can ruin your progress in a very tricky way that it's actually very hard to spot if you don't pay enough attention. Having said that, that was all for today. Thank you very much for listening. A bit of a harder episode, I have to admit. I have to do quite a bit of takes in order to make it. I think also because the concept itself is not necessarily easy. And the other aspect is that during these days, the heat is absolutely destroying me. Also because here, as you might imagine, the shower, it's a closed environment. So yeah, it's not easy to stay in here for 10-15 minutes and actually concentrating. But this is besides the point. I hope you liked today's episode. If you did, leaving a like and subscribing to the Shower Podcast, it's always welcome. And let me know in the comments, as always, if you believe this phrase is true and what are the gaps in your life that you would like to see filled or that you are filling at the moment. As always, stay consistent, stay resilient. This was the Shower Podcast and see you tomorrow.